Caroline, and thank you, Michael, for your leadership. I'm the guy who gets to warm up the crowd for Jeff. And I am very, very happy to do it because I'm really proud to be here at People for the American Way with all of you because we have a real battle on our hands. Saturday was the 2-year anniversary of the ghastly Citizens United decision, and I hope that it actually was the point at which the court went too far and will provoke a public reaction that we can take advantage of to try to restrict the extraordinary explosion of corporate power that the court had been stepping with smaller steps towards in so many decisions along the way. But the Citizens United decision was really extraordinary. It's basically encapsulated by candidate Romney's sort of unwitting comment, but corporations are people. Well, no, corporations aren't people. They don't have souls. They don't have consciences. They're a mechanism by which people organize their behavior, but they're not people. And the way in which the court has given them power creates immense imbalance because they can use their corporate treasuries. And if you've got corporations like ExxonMobil that are making billions of dollars a quarter, it's pretty easy to drown out regular folks in the media market that we have. So, and the other thing that it does is it takes everybody's money in the corporation and puts it under the control of the CEO, which is a person often from the 1%. So if you believe in that distinction, you're giving an enormous amount of power to that minority to perpetuate itself. So we have a lot of work to do. We're seeing it in action right now, what one of the Federal Election Commissioners called the evil twins of political campaigns. The super PACs are out right now. I think evil twin is a wonderful name to describe them. They're like a campaign, only they're supposedly independent, but, you know, same buddies running it, same donors, message coordinated without being caught at it. You can pretty much see how that works. But in terms of the evil side of the evil twins, unlimited donations instead of restricted to a campaign, unidentified donations other than required to be reported in a campaign, and if you get really down, dirty, vile, ugly, and lie, who cares? Nobody's accountable because it's not the candidate doing it. There's no ownership. So it really is an awful new appearance in the American political system, as many people have said on both sides of the aisle. So we've got a bit of a battle ahead of us, but I think it's a really good battle to fight. If we're right and if we're lucky, the Citizens United decision will go down in history with Plessy versus Ferguson as one of the truly awful Supreme Court decisions, one that later Supreme Courts would come to regret. I'll close with 2 quick points. One is that I think as a lawyer who has done a fair amount of appellate practice, that was kind of my thing back when I was actually practicing law, there's a bit of a weak underbelly to the Citizens United decision, and that is its findings of fact. People who practice appellate law know that Supreme Courts aren't supposed to do findings of fact. That's what the trial court does. The Supreme Court looks at it, takes the facts as they are in the record, and then determines if the law has been correctly applied. The Supreme Court made findings of fact. They made a finding of fact that unlimited corporate spending in elections does not create corruption or even the appearance of corruption. Well, that's a preposterous finding of fact for anybody who's been around politics. Maybe that's a problem that erupts when you have members of the Supreme Court who've never run for office before. But I think there was an ulterior motive here because that critical finding of fact, as wrong as it was the linchpin for the rest of the analysis. If that finding of fact isn't there, the entire decision falls to pieces. And so I think we need to be careful about attacking that finding of fact. The previous cases that they overruled had plenty of findings to the contrary. Legislative hearings have developed plenty of findings to the contrary, and experience tells you the contrary. And whether it's the company that comes in and drops $4 million worth of negative trash in the last minute of a race against one candidate and for another, and You're supposed to show that there's no allegiance between the candidate and the company that did that. That's bonkers. And it gets worse when you take it to the next step, which many people thinking about Citizens United overlook. Citizens United isn't just dangerous because of what the corporations will do under Citizens United. It is dangerous because of what they will threaten to do. The most dangerous thing under Citizens United is the lobbyist going into the congressman. And by the way, I want to recognize Congressman Tom Allen, who did such a wonderful job representing Maine for many years. They will come and visit Tom, or they will come and visit me, and they will say, step into my office. Here, I'd like to show you something. Look at this ad. And the ad blows me to bits. And they say, we're going to put $3 or $4 million behind that ad. And we're going to do it through a company that, you know, will make up the name. Nobody will be able to trace it to us. And you'll have a real problem on your hands unless you vote right. You vote with us on this, and nobody sees that ad. You vote against us on this, and it's $4 million behind that ad starting next, you know, August or whenever the date is. That meeting nobody ever sees. There's really no accountability for that. But when you open the floodgates this way, you open the floodgates also to the threat. So we really have to be talking about how wrong those factual findings are and build that record. And I'm happy to say that we have one brave Supreme Court. You mentioned Montana earlier. The Montana Supreme Court just made a very clear decision, and they said, you know, we have a record. And using very strong language like clearly unlimited corporate spending interferes with the election. Inevitably, it drowns out the voices of regular people. They rejected the Citizens United decision. So, you know, it's an interesting ferment when you even have state Supreme Courts fighting back. I'm going to take the liberty of having you here as an audience, because I know you're interested in this, to make one final point, and that is that, unrelated to Citizens United exactly, juries. Juries are an incredibly important part of our constitutional structure. They're in the Constitution of the Bill of Rights not once, not twice, but 3 different times. De Tocqueville describes them as one of the core constitutional elements that protects us from tyranny, an essential part of the American system of government. In the other attacks on the system and the other decisions that have supported corporations, very often the jury has been the target. And we've let it pass. Very few people think of the jury as an important part of our constellation of rights and of government structure. And so I urge you, as you think as an organization, I know many organizations are represented here, don't forget the jury. Every time they make a decision that diminishes an American's right to a jury, they're diminishing one of the core elements of our constitutional structure of government. So nobody knows this better than Jeff, who has written so extensively on this and in such a wonderful way. He has a great book. He is a great voice. He is ardent on it. And without further ado, I have to run for a flight, so excuse me, but I give you Jeff Clements.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse, and thanks to Michael and Caroline and ACS. Before Senator Whitehouse goes too far, though, I have here, he already got a book. I sent him a book already. So this one doesn't cost as much, but it's clearly more valuable. It's the Constitution, Free Speech for People, and it includes the Declaration and the Gettysburg Address. So, thank you. And Senator Whitehouse saying that he was warming up for me. I feel like, you know, the garage band that comes on after Springsteen or something. And so I'm just gonna surf his wave for a minute here. And I don't usually do readings of my book because it's not really that kind of book, and I'll talk a bit about it in a minute. But near the end, after sort of laying out this history of where Citizens United came from, where this corporate speech doctrine came from, how it was really ginned up in the Chamber of Commerce and amongst a very select group of the largest corporations in the world to literally transform our social, political, and legal structure. I end with quoting Senator Whitehouse, actually. I'm not even sure he knows this, unless he read to page 1.